Good evening, everybody. Thanks so much for coming out tonight. I'm Nick Neely, an assistant professor of English writing at Eastern Oregon University. Welcome to the Sandra and Carl Elston Ars Poetica Fun Reading and Conversation, featuring poet Allison Adelle Hedge Coke and her new book, Look at This Blue, a poem. Here it is, such beautiful cover. Just released by Coffee House Press last month. She'll be in conversation tonight with EOU MFA faculty member Abigail Shabitnoy, which is sure to be a fantastic dialogue. And I'd like to invite Abigail and Allison just to pop on screen and say hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you. As people settle in, I'm going to drop a few links and reminders into the chat, which I'll do now. Included are links to Allison and Abigail's latest books and links to our Ars Poetica webpage where you can find announcements about future events and video archives of past events. I thought I'd also briefly highlight that next month we're excited to be hosting our first in-person Ars Poetica in several years, which will be here on the EOU campus in La Grande on Saturday, May 21st at 5 p.m. Memoirist Tina Ontiveros will present her debut book, Rough House, which won a Pacific Northwest Book Award and was a finalist for the 2022 Oregon Book Award in Creative Nonfiction. This event will also be live streamed, so please stay tuned for that link. The book has been described as, quote, a memoir of family, addiction, joy, and adventure set in the rural spaces of the Pacific Northwest. Ontiveros follows her logger father as he migrates across his wooded territory, cobbling together shelters for his family, burning bridges, and forever starting over. Thank you for letting me share all that. And now that it is an inadequate gesture by far, I nonetheless would like to begin with a brief land acknowledgement, since many of us are here in La Grande, where EOU is sited. We humbly acknowledge the original inhabitants of the land Eastern Oregon University is upon, the Cayuse, Umatilla, Walla Walla, and Nez Perce people. We celebrate their traditions, languages, and stories. We acknowledge their continuing connection to this land, water, and community, and pay our respects to these original stewards of Northeastern Oregon. Thank you. And tonight I know we'll also celebrate traditions and give attention to injustices that stretch far beyond Oregon. I'm now happy to do introductions. First, I'll introduce Allison and her book, and then I'll introduce Abigail. Allison will read for about 15 or 20 minutes, and then Abigail will have questions for her immediately following. We hope you'll have questions too, and ask that at any point you drop those into the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Without further ado, it's my honor to introduce Allison Adelle Hedge Coke. Among many other accomplishments, she is an American Book Award winner, Fulbright Scholar, and U.S. Library of Congress Witter Binner Fellow. She has written 7 books of poetry, 1 book of nonfiction, a play, and she is the editor of 10 anthologies. Following former field worker retraining in Santa Paula and Ventura, Southern California in the mid-1980s, she began teaching, and she is now a distinguished professor of creative writing at the University of California, Riverside. Among her many projects, she recently has served as the director of UC Riverside's Writers Week, the Along the Chaparral Puena project, excuse me if I mispronounced that, and the Sandhill Crane Migration Retreat and Festival. And here's how Coffee House Press in part describes Look at This Blue. Interweaving elegy, indictment, and hope into a love letter to California, Look at This Blue examines America's genocidal past and present to warn of a future threatened by mass extinction and climate peril. An assemblage of historical record and lyric fragments, these poems form a taxonomy of threatened lives, human, plant, and animal, in a century marked by climate emergency. Look at This Blue insists upon a reckoning and redress of America's continuing violence toward Earth and its peoples, as Hedge Coke's cataloging of loss crescendos into resistance. And now to introduce Abigail Shabitnoy, who I have the pleasure of calling a colleague, as she has taught for EOU's MFA program this year and has contributed so much to our students and to the program. She's the author of How to Dress a Fish, out from Wesleyan University Press in 2019. That book was the winner of the 2020 Colorado Book Award for poetry, and it was shortlisted for the international category of the 2020 Griffin Prize for poetry. Her second book, forthcoming also from Wesleyan this fall, is In the Current Where Drowning is Beautiful. Her poems have appeared in Hayden's Ferry Review, Boston Review, Tin House, Gulf Coast, and Lit Hub, among others. She has an MFA in creative writing from Colorado State University, and it is with both happiness for Abigail and sadness for our program that I share. She recently accepted a position as an assistant professor of creative writing at UMass Amherst for the fall. Congratulations, Abby.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you both for being here tonight. I'm so pleased and excited to hear you both. It's now my pleasure to turn it over to Allison Adelle Hedge Coke, reading from Look at This Blue.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Abigail. Once the world was gleaming, open, we entered unknowing, believing all we came to we must deserve, knowing we did not, faced extinction. The path we has taken has rotted. Ignite, stand upright, conduct yourself like lightning. Tanya Tagaq, Retribution, Epigraph. Look at this blue, Urxus blue butterfly from the sand dunes of San Francisco, first known American butterfly to become extinct due to humans, first known. Redwood burls cut like blisters, shared from trunks, poached life source from root, killing giants in knobby growth removals, baseline, canopy height bud tissue, unsprouted genetic code for clone apparent tree emergence, barrel at my mouth, ready cocked, held there by my baby brother's bared grip. Lemon wedge half moon pops over, flat consume shallow, over sweet sound, low rustle in loady water. Chortle trill, night language from standing cranes, sandtails, they've been there all along, standing still, knee-deep in station pools. Orion hovering eastward, drawn, readied, someone slinks past door jamb, each chokehold, failed, vaporizes cognizance. In a world fast shaking herself loose from diabolical torrent, rising throttle song above throttle breath, choked out between calligraphies, madness clenched fury, unfurled release, misery met in each pummel break. It's not over. Sleep in despair, sleeping moth-tongued, unrolled against central incisors, human-throated, deep yearns for saxophone, trachea, windpipe, sandhills chortle, only saving grace, wetlands marshaled, nothing here on guardian watch. Riverside, reaching back for slip skateboard, he was hit so hard he flew while braking, a crow above whose wings were sunning, swooped at the same time the car careened to halt on Martin Luther King Road, near Bordwell Park, east side, where the speed limit suddenly increases while approaching two close crosswalks leading to homes from Stratton Community Center, Bordwell, Emerson Elementary, east side, black, brown kids, elders, anyone can see. Someone once worked this out. It's all going to burn, says man accused of setting holy fire. First the puma in Santa Paula palm branch, then coyotes, fox, rabbits appear, birds overcome sky, plume, then an entire yard, a carpet of undulating fleas, so thick, wrapping bread bags over feet and ankles, barely made it passable. Everything escaping heat from fire-stormed arson, 120,000 acres, blanket-fired, Los Padres National Forest, and more, choking like the child they found, still hung. Sleep in the dream of bettering world, sleep in the dream nightmare woken. What we carry howls, boggling. Her cheek contorts in flame, unfanned yet fanning. She eclipses all asunder, all broken. Scarface vision and temporal melt. Somewhere on my left face, you can still see where it was sewn back on. On the right, the line across the eyelid where it was sewn back. On the abdomen, the line where it was sewn back, sewn back, sewn back. Somewhere on my right hand where it was sewn. All the heres and theirs were sewn. All the biopsies, removals, explorations, assaults, sewn. What we carry weeps, wet-haired. Her cheek contorts when sprayed by guard. From the first time she attempted, her neck ached. Meanwhile, here a third body in Baldwin Hills fire. More missing. Arson again. Someone is out there. Look at this blue, Palos Verdes blue from the Palos Verdes Peninsula, one of the best claims to being world's rarest butterfly, first thought extinct by development, rediscovered by Rick Rogers, Rudy Mattoni, and Timothy Dahlem at the Defense Fuel Support Point in San Pedro. The newly returned lays eggs on deerweed. Notice the patterning on the underside of wing. Remember along the way the murdered sow bear, her cubs taken for claws. We're all just symptoms of something massive faster over. They're killing us, weaponizing nature, sanctifying arms, consecrating each trigger-flexed hand. Dad in his 80s, on the trailer roof, sprayer in hand, fighting back ignition, not leaving till everyone leaves. Or the time he battled out of being rolled, just smoothly turned his cane horizontal, asking punks who should join him when he dies soon enough, until they scramble across Kmart parking lot. Trigger turned to face every right to bear bitter, every night scheme daybreak flash. No need to fictionalize this dude. It is what he is, what man made what man. Sliced labia squamous, first sometime mid-20s, missing children, women taken somewhere. For me, it was a gully, a pond, a vase, a van, a hall, a window. Broken branch and canopy. Trees like fingers, like stiff blade through my right hand. Bone handles separating knuckles. Like gales tearing muscle, bearing my keen weight. Or E. coli, some salad in the back aisle. Invader like this guy, too idiotic to merit note past criminal code. When pressing limits, cruelties, as method of stopping poems, so they could not escape, no matter the musescape. Santa Ana's, floods, frost on Orange Grove, all that counted elsewise was any snowfall on Topa Topa. Something lost on Death Wish facade, calling itself man. Ghost knocks pounded behind my head on the wall when he tried to stay there. Enigma? Can we still use this? Maybe we are, I am, but not in the way Lopez would call me bruja when Plantanger split. Oranges flew, unaided. Chairs bobbed like mergansers and quakes. Northridge, maybe wildest, we'd met. A pipe bomb, some believed. In the still, no one questioned, some thrilled by variance, by her shaking us loose. Behind us, Liminaria, a town of a camp, now suburban development, then all sorts of workers, growers since 1893, Rancho Cespi, Floriacantos, La Lucha We Would Go, Santa Paula, Fillmore, Piru, Oxnard Strawberries, Satakoy Records, Ventura Gold Beaches, Hot Peppers shouldering Blood Alley, Ventura Freeway 126, oleanders, eucalyptus, rhododendron. I came from the camps, not these, but I served these children decades ago. When Oliveland's 7-year-old girl wrote, "My eyes are the green of August," I still see her eyes, her August now. Condors replenish. Phoenix, half-grown chicks survived Big Sur fire, matured, fathered egg with redwood queen, whose initial mate was lost to Dolan fire. All phoenix rise. Blue-green egg until milky, milky way split open in some hollowed redwood on cave floor dust, cliff edge. Once my hand gleaned plume from cliff edge. Something called me to reach in, feel what left it gone. Fingers raked, pulled from pit, what remnant left there, left there. Let love lead, let hand that pummeled rest, let scowl rest, face relieve, let shoulders locked high tight recede, let feet cracked worn ease, let back stiff sore bent open, let lungs swell breath like ocean, let all of us, all of us, all of us, let all of us be unbroken. Take heart, earth hears every tremble touch, feels each foot, listens now, bring her justice, protection, peace. Look at this blue, mutant blue coyotes, chance mutation, baby blues in 9 coyotes suggesting proliferation, silvery brown backed with icy blue eyes, antenna ears turning satellite-like, hearing voles, Santa Cruz, Sacramento, Point Reyes. Their apex predators were mostly wolves, mountain lions, or killed by humans. Here they are thriving, hunting, blue-eyed, chance mutation. Tenderloin mornings. Someone took a shot at me before 9 a.m. It's been 2 days since neighbors shot over me, lying over you, protecting you. Since Traveler's Aid allowed me to get here to take cover, at least your father can't kill me now. This passing car, mad at the world, taking pot shots, has poor aim, or didn't mean to score, just trying to get some juice and keep hydrated. My sister is still awake from her night shift, watching you for the first time. For 10 minutes while I cross, hide, then turk, grab a box of juice, piece of bread, head back, unscathed. I passed by the old man someone brought from a reservation left here on the street. No one knows his language. My sister says he'll accept a sandwich, juice, so I go back, grab him one. Today it's orange. Here's a heel. Someone from St. Vincent's gave him a cane. He looks maybe blind or cataracted. Wish his name was known. Wish we knew his home. Get him with his people. Morning seems high above. The buildings block out any rise, and the whole thing seems to spin cardinal points opposite, so north is south. The peninsula living, Yelamu, Ramaytush, Ohlone. My sister learns at San Francisco State, works late shift, printing newspapers there, working for a bachelor's in Native Studies. It takes her about 11 years to complete it. Me, I'm scrambling just to hydrate, acclimate. In the year Tom Petty wailed, I said you don't have to live like a refugee. Score before Care Not Cash San Francisco labeled me indigent. Didn't offer a home, just rent to my sister. In a few weeks, you'll have red measles, not move for days, dehydrated, will nearly leave. For me standing in line, St. Vincent's, with you wrapped tightly in sling alongside, for food, medicine, essentials we don't keep, the stream of morning over your face when you recover. We're 7th, 8th gen, shirt tails undeserving, unenrolled, unfit, undocumented, 2 gens from Fluency's, heritage. But the Friendship House reps say we're welcome to sit in if we get over Oakland Way. This is before I could express myself. Chin still positioned ready or chin down, ghosting, into horizons you can't see. My sister came here in the 70s. Our mom and dad for their honeymoon after blind date meeting in the late 40s, last century. You can feel them here still. Each time it's real. We call note space. Yes, we were there. Before any time passes, we realize other families don't have these homing knowns. My sister is embarrassed of me. 2 backwoods, 2 field laborer, 2 sharecropping, 2 fisher, 2 farmer, 2 backwoods, mocks my handiwork. Ask if I plan to sell trinkets on the side of the road. Maybe leatherwork, I claim, and show her mine. She walks a block ahead of me, mocking me to her city friends, like we walked aisles over from our mom, deep in delusion, cruising through aisles in Piggly Wiggly, but never mocking her, not once. Where does this mocking come from? A raven cry for my heart. Here, streets lined with fresh refugees, straggler homeless, cardboard boxmen, prostitutes, pimps, beautiful neighborhood people who teach me you can get a great meal for $2 on this block, how to eat with chopsticks, which store gives free bread if you don't have money. Lots of skins pass through, not Ohlone. How many times was I given up, Left for dead, rejected, objectified, ejected. Does it matter still? When jump started or just woke when unexpected to, always returning to the beauty of this world. Abject misery layered, still splendor, despite beautiful, horrendous juxtapositioning throughout our time. Look at this blue, Mission blue butterfly from coastal chaparral grasslands, Mission District, San Francisco to Twin Peaks, Marin County, most upon San Bruno Mountain. Small, delicate, gossamer winged, male iridescent blue lavender, female dark brown blue base, fringed and long white hair like scales, undersides spotted, the wingspread 1 to 1.5 inches long. Caterpillars solely ingest native California lupine, eat silver summer, varicolor, lupine. Adults drink flower nectar, buckwheat, golden asters, wild hyacinths, endangered by first development. Public infrastructure development projects remain her significant threat. There was mercy, mercy, oh, mercy, mercy, me, perforating a heart, a lung, liver. Los Angeles County coroner said he was shot twice. War, mercy, mercy. Look at this blue, blue whale alongside Monterey, San Diego, Baja, gentle giant, heaviest animal to ever live on Earth. Twice Argentinosaurus. Ship strikes kill 11 per year. U.S. West Coast. With ship increase, population will be depleted. Noise, military testing, sonic battery, chemicals, plastics, krill, anchovy, tiny fish, tiny crustaceans absorb microplastic. A blue whale eats between 2 and 4 tons of krill per day. Blue with a belly full of plastic. In the bus, on the way to retraining for field workers, we left Santa Paula for Ventura Daily. Rhododendron, eucalyptus, limonadea orange groves, peppers, flowers for Burpee Seed Company, red-winged hawks every mile of eucalyptus, 126 Ventura Freeway, on watch like us for movement, X, Santa Paula, North Star of Guanajuato, Mupu Ashumash, we escaped here, refugees, closed eyes, let finger conjure home on map, conjure home. This is where, from here, everything changes. Rewrite, reset, reverb. Offer projects for Santa Ynez kids at get-go. Offer self. Send for my folks to follow. Dad notes, know this, if there's snow on Topa Topa, everything's okay. Mom doesn't leave their pickup until the 4th day. A Vallejo apartment, their last place, West Coast, way prior to my lifetime. Restful now. Restart. Gratitude. Santa Paula Bank on Harvard, was it? Dad Deaf spoke out loud. Where did everyone go? While tellers ducked in cover, while Robert displayed his weapon to me, gestures at my toddler suggest I gather. I motioned toward Dad, gesturing his deafness, offered to gather him as well. Mercy, with peace, from the bank robber who now escapes on a bicycle about the time the tellers remember him from high school. Here in the shadows, leaves keep life close. Fruit, the taste of it. Dusk, following plant rows around crates. Comfort here. Home. Nothing like a bed under stars wherever, when we need. Gleam now in rain slickening. Arroyo willow branch. Blue elderberry summon wind. Santa Ana's tangle reason. Still leaves night. Embanged by owl wing. Here hammocked over. Oasis watering life. Rocks form mouths pre-dawn calling. Deep in night, corded sky ropes tug through visceral root. Harness our reckoning, throttle to timbre. Thrum, strum, pluck gut sleeve, kindle fiddle full belly. Flourish poppies as quarter notes. Spiral double helix high above California fan palm until stars are born. Your palms know where to go. What they imagine leads you. Everything we muster moves us along, like water, mirroring itself, remembers where to flow, how to go. In the dream you follow. In the dream we fly over all of this direness. Float vaquitas. We move like smallest porpoises, undulate in air like swimming, arms tight against our sides. California spread below us, manzanitas gleaming in sun. Stars ahead in darkness await our time there. For now, it's the offering we make. Look at this blue, Hidden Lake blue curls from Hidden Lake, San Jacinto's, Riverside County, on the shores of a single vernal pool, ephemeral, trampling by hikers, sightseekers, endangers each flower, a hairy calyx with pointed sepals, tubular corona. 50 flowers might fit on a penny. A member of the mint family, delisting, seed stored in seed bank, vulnerable. Will you take me as I am, California? I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Allison. That was such a wonderful reading. It was so great to hear your voice and your cadence, and to hear this poem that I've been fortunate to spend some time with in this past month, to hear that voiced out loud. It was beautiful. I'm very excited and happy to be here and having this conversation with you, and fitting, even though we're virtual, it was through Oregon and in Fish Trap that I first got to be familiar with your work, and it's been incredible to see this going. Diving in here, your poems frequently consider the natural world and its vulnerability at human hands, and I'm thinking especially of Streaming and Blood Run and those earlier texts I read of yours. But when I first read Look at This Blue, there seems to be a new energy and an urgency and power, not that wasn't there before, because your poems always had that, but in a sense of a kind of dormant volcano waking. There just seems to be so much energy. And I was wondering if you could speak to that progression and how you keep seeming to find new ways and fresh ways to enter this crisis that continues to persist.
Thank you. Yeah, some of it has to do with just orchestrating oneself in the world. And I really think in music before I get to language. And so I may walk around with a piece for many years happening on different levels of sound and instrumentation that I'm in at different points of being in life. And suddenly things come together for me. My longer pieces that are book length are that way, and my longer pieces that might be 7 to 18 pages are also that way. They almost always come to me as music first, and sometimes over many years. In this case, I first moved to California, escaping violence, ended up in more violence, but not as bad. So lesser violence. When I was in my 20s, and it was reprieve for me, and then became a true reprieve on my third move to California, still in my 20s, when I did the former field worker retraining. And so I've had impressions of California with me for 42 years now, and many times of living here and working in California over those years, and other departures for other jobs and other things in life as well. So one could say this particular piece has been building all of that time. And I had another book that was due for deadline with Coffee House. I wasn't really feeling that I had been working on a while. And I was overcome with grief and the state of the planet, the lack of action, the inaction, the inequity, the injustice, all of these things. And I was on Fulbright, landed in Montenegro. My host was going to be gone 2 days, and I was on deadline, and I wasn't feeling the book that was complete. So I gave in to everything that was happening within me that I'd probably been walking with for a good while, and wrote the book in 48 hours. And I had a lot
Wow.
of coffee and no food. And was up all night. I barely slept and got the draft done in 42 hours. So it was a massive, I just felt like I was immersed in this jazz instrumentation that was happening, and that it was juxtaposed against all of these experiences and knowns. After I finished the former fieldworker retraining, the first job they gave me was working with second chance high school kids. I had a GED at the time. I didn't go to high school because I was working, but they put me in working with second chance high school kids and GED kids. And then the city had some federal money, and created a job for me as a historical interpreter and then as collections manager for the city of San Buenaventura. So I studied California history, particularly in that area, but wider spread with the missionary and such, colonization, and interviewed all the tribes in the area that I could find reps for and elders in the local community, and gained a lot of historical knowledge about California very, very quickly. So I've also been walking around with a lot of knowns that have been in there doing their thing, and it came together in that way. I hope that explains it a bit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm just really interested in this idea of return and fragmentation. And it's interesting because when you first started talking about your process and your notes or the knowledge that you were sitting with and these experiences and the kind of returns to California, it struck me as, yes, this idea of the pieces coming together, that kind of idea of percolation. And at first I was inclined to ask if, you felt this idea, this kind of fragmentation was particular to that kind of instability of location and place and that experience. Um, and I know, similar fragmentation comes up a lot in women's work, just from the way our days are interrupted, and of course, for various reasons, and how these different interruptions, I'm thinking for my students, especially trying to get them to constantly be cultivating the poem as process, how that comes together and how that continues to drive questions and continues to reshape the questions.
Yeah, all of that. Also, different portions of the book have a different musicality for me, and there's a refrain that's a variable with "look at this blue," and then a particular, often butterfly, but not always, that is has been extincted, is on the verge of extinction. And there's about 18 pages of sort of listing all the well, not all, but a good sample of things that are lost. And each category of that has, it's a bridge, it's this, it's that, musically speaking, and so it has different structure, different architecture, but so do our conversations. I mean, in life. We change timbre and tone all day long, and longer sets have that as well, orchestrations and such. But our interaction with the living world, and what's been erased, what's being erased, what's in dire situation, and the deaths, the multitude of deaths that have resulted from some real horrendous action on the part of human beings, that is just unfathomable to sit down and think about. What it takes to create that much destruction, and the hurt of it, the pain of it, and we're living through it. And I remember as a kid, and I'm in my 60s now, and I remember as a child we had these cards, and it would be animals that are rare now, and these animals that are extinct, and there's not enough cards in the world for those now.
Mm-hmm.
There's it's a countless, what's happened. So I think that pressure was on me, and it's my response to the pressure. It's my call to accountability to the state of California, as well. It's a love letter as well for all of the same features, for the land, for the living creatures that populate the water, the air, everything, and what populates all of that, and that extreme passion for all of this, and yet the indictment of the state for all of the wrongs that the state has done, that have been implemented by the state and by people within the state, and that continue. So it's a hard conversation to have, and I think some of the variables have to do with that. But I also want to note that you're spot on with the interruptions, because it's peppered with different um, episodic events throughout my time there, but also Well, here I'm in Southern California. I was thinking Tenderloin that moment, which is north. But all the interruptions that played out, and there's so many violences throughout, and all of it's juxtaposed against the beauty. So I think it's a bit of discord that you might be picking up on. The discordance that's happening there is might be how I would phrase it.
Yes, absolutely. There's certainly, I think, a pronounced current in this work, especially, as I said, the economic crisis, or economic, also also relevant, but the
Sure.
environmental, the ecological crisis has certainly a line that's been in your work before, but also this kind of pronounced current of also the, well, economic and gendered violence of this collection, the racial violence of this collection, and the way in which these crises all seem to be related. And it's interesting, to consider it. You say you wrote this in 2 days,
Yeah.
which sort of answers one of my questions, is how you decide when to stop a work like this, when it just seems like the ending really struck me as unexpected and sudden in a way that I wasn't expecting. I wasn't ready to turn the page and not have more
Yeah.
poems. It really just, and it really makes me think about that lack of resolution, or that lack of conclusion, in the way that the conversation does seem to continue to go on. And is there really a way to end such a work, or how does that conversation go past the page? And really, what questions, I suppose, all to that lack of resolution, kind of pointing to the larger gesture, very much intentional, of the book. In that vein, what questions do you see? How do you see those solutions, those crises related, and their solutions, if you see any, related, and how that
Yeah.
relates to the work, and what
Yeah.
questions we're not asking yet that we need to be?
Yeah. That's
Sorry,
so
I'm throwing so much at you as like
I
a
love
terrified
it.
mother of an 8-week-old daughter, and that all of these questions of like, yes, what are we going to do? How can we, as poets, jump into this conversation?
I love it. I love it. And in my first time to come to California, I was a new mother. I had a newborn child, my oldest, who is now, how old is he now? I guess he's 41 now. So he was a newborn then. He's turning 42 this year. And so in fall, it'll be like 22 years. I mean, 42 years since that time. And we left with this. Literally, they were shooting over us, and I was on top of him, and I got traveler's aid at a first airport I ever flew out of in my life in my 20s to get to my sisters in San Francisco on the Tenderloin, and he was a baby, and my dad had made me slings to carry him, so I had slings. He was always tied to me, and just taking him to the mission so I could get something to eat because he was nursing. He caught red measles there, because he was too young for those vaccinations and almost died. So like 4 days I had this newborn who didn't move at
Mhm.
all. He was so sick with measles. And, so there's a lot of early young motherhood in this as well. And now this seasoned grandmother that I am, my oldest granddaughter's 19, and turning 20 this summer. And so it's all of that. That it's interesting. I had to say this. I don't get invited to a lot of like women's things, and I never have, which has always been sort of bizarre to me. And I've asked people, how come I don't count? I had kids. Clearly, something's working there. And they go, we don't think of you like that. I go, how do you think of me? And I think they must have an idea of gender that I really have, or some kind of
Mhm.
concept. But my publishers, my editor, Erica Stevens, who I love, said this is, in a way, it reads like this whole uh, epic sort of sense of the old short story, The Yellow Wallpaper, where the woman is
Mhm.
being tortured so much by everything that she just goes into the walls and becomes these ripples in the walls. And I go, yes, it's that, because they're killing us. They're killing everything here, you know, and how do we survive that? How do we maintain? How do we hold dignity? How do we position and do the fight we need to do to switch it, to change it? And so that angst is there, that positioning is there, that, you know, throwing up the hands to do the battle, you know, it's all there. But also very much from the point of young mother, you know, and then mother, and now grandmother, and it's like, get with it, you know, make it happen. You know, it's just gone on way too long, you know, and it's difficult, but there is that. So totally in communicado with you with those feelings that you're having at this point. And I was going through a lot of those changes in parts of this, probably in very different ways, of course, for different people in different era. But yeah, it's all there. I think too that there's something that happens when you have kids, you know, whereas there's not, you're not in the same position mentally, physiologically, to allow things to happen in the same way that you might have let it go before you had them. You know, it does something to you, and you act and behave differently as a result of that. Most people, not everyone, but most people. I don't know if my mom did, but most people, yeah, but most people have some change there, and some of it is that, you know, it's that sort of matriarchal, you know, very much woman-centered feeling of caring for. Uh,
Mhm.
and you know, our mother, the world, you know, the universe, and being that on the planet and occupying that role. Um, you know, when I say I wrote something in 2 days, like I did this draft, intellectually it's been happening for a very long time. I had the time and place to open up and allow it to happen, and no one bothered me for 2 days. And I was pressured by a deadline with a book I was not married to. And so I went for this because I was feeling it. And I
Mhm.
thought, this needs to happen. And so in that, I just allowed it to. So it's almost like taking notes for yourself at that point because it's all in there, you know. So it's not work, it's different, it's tiring, it's exhausting, but it's just opening up and letting it out.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's such a process. It's like, you know, I try to tell my students that, you know, it sounds hokey to say, but really like poetry as a lifestyle. It's just this kind of hyper awareness, and even just reading, you know, the different types of difficult poetry. We think about difficult poetry as linguistically difficult, or logically or semantically difficult, but also just difficult poetry that forces us to look at what's difficult. And I think it's interesting trying to reflect on how motherhood has changed my approach to writing. It's almost um I think working similarly, but taking a different approach, in that I feel like so much of my work has focused on the negative. My second collection focuses on these narratives of violence against women, which I also think it's so interesting that you're not considered and invited in these circles of women writers, because I'm thinking of your book now after you made that comment, very much in the vein of, I had just read Alice Notley's epic one, and just thinking of feminist epics and female long forms, and how there are similarities, I think, in these approaches, and how bizarre it is that we try to compartmentalize them. But I think that my approach has been almost to have to find new ways of joy, new ways of wonder, which I do appreciate are in your book, but in this way too, of look at this wonderful thing that we're also on the verge of losing, and trying to kind of balance that need for urgency with also this need to stay sane, and almost shield yourself, or frame the question in a way so that you can approach the crisis and not be overwhelmed by it, and not be fatigued by it. So I'm, for one, very grateful that the stars sort of aligned for you to put this book together in that time frame, in that kind of space.
Yeah,
I will.
I finished it and I thought, I need to sleep. I slept for maybe 6 or 7 hours, and then I got up and I took a walk, and I thought, okay, it's out, you know, it's going to do its thing now. And I literally just sent it off immediately, and luckily my editor loved it and was going to do it. It's a little slower in coming. There's been some delays with COVID and such. So during the copy editing, I was able to slip in a couple of things about the pandemic because it was just before we knew about the pandemic. So it was, you know, fall 19 when I was in Montenegro. And so it's just before that happened. So during copy editing, like a year and a half later, you know, it's like, okay, this happened. But also a wolf showed up in Ventura County for the first time in 99 years.
Oh,
And my
wow.
dear friend, Christina Eisenberg, at Oregon State University, who is a wolf reclamationist, was part of the uh, wolf reclamation in a particular area that it moved down from into California, and she predicted that and predicted where it would end up, and it did. And I slipped that in, that wolf showing up, a few lines about the pandemic that were relative to other things, and then we had to cut out about, oh, I don't know. I think we cut out about 20 pages of it. It was about 140 some pages. And I think we cut it down to 120.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
so we shaved out some. I won't mention why we decided to, but maybe it'll pop up somewhere else. Uh, and then we added in an index so people could follow the trails. And I put in as a way to, like you say, as a way to bring it forward, to offer the solution. I put in a resource list and just called it Do the Work. You know, asking the reader to be a part of things, you know, to take the read and act, you know, basically be with me in this, and let's do this together, you know. So there's a resource list where people can get involved in California and elsewhere as well, that follows the poetry and comes before the index. And so that to me was like the closure of the closure was the resource list. So it's like, will you take me, as a Joni Mitchell line from a song, returning to California after being away? Will you take me as I am, California, in her song? And then, so I closed it with that. I feel like in the process moving toward where I would know it was closing when I hit the Marvin Gaye killing, where his father killed him, you know, and being here, you know, and being in those spaces and knowing where he was killed by his father. So some part of me, I was born the year Motown became a thing. And so my earliest memories, I had chemo for many years and lots of surgeries when I had cancer for like 20 years. And one of the chemos, methotrexate, anyone's had chemo and gotten over it has funny chemo stories at some point. One of the chemos, the side effect was Tourette's. And I was in South Dakota that season working with the Arts Council, and they invited me to the Lieutenant Governor's inauguration. And we're sitting at these tables. I had chemo that morning, sitting at this banquet, and all of a sudden, out of my mouth, loud like the radio was turned on, came Motown. I had no control over it whatsoever, and it's blaring out of my mouth like a radio, and I have no idea what's going on. I finally wrote a note to someone at the table and said, take me back to Cancer Center, which they did. And I walked in and it was happening, and they go, oh, Tourette's is a side effect of this chemo. But they said most people come back cursing or saying, because parents are so nervous with little children that they
Yeah.
curse at each other, and they're, you know, frustrated. And so the kid hears that earliest childhood. Well, my dad played Motown all day. So my earliest childhood memory is apparently Motown. So my Tourette's is Motown, which is kind of crazy to think about, but wonderful. And so I think by the time I got to thinking of Marvin Gaye being killed by his father and how much loss that is as well, you know, it's like just another expiration that just didn't need to happen. I think I knew I was winding down because I think in music. And so once that happened, I was waiting, and the next music ref that came up was the Joni Mitchell. And when I got to that, I go, okay, we're done now. You know, so that's how it happened for me when I slid into that other. Yeah.
Oh, that's so wonderful. I mean, there's a lot that's not wonderful in that experience, but thinking of being in this official kind of space at this meeting, and that being the sort of unstoppable flooding of, this sort of joy. I love that.
It's
Um, I'd
hilarious.
I'd be remiss to not ask anyone in our audience if they have any questions they would like to put in the Q&A or the chat. Certainly feel free to do that while we have this great presence here. And while we're waiting to see if maybe something comes through from our audience, I'm curious about that. What you think that relationship of activism and solidarity and witness, and in the poem, how much we can ask of the poem, what we can ask as poets and as activists, what we can ask of the poem, what we can ask of the poet, what we can ask of the reader. And I know you did this in Blood Run too. That was also a work that was very much driven by a conservation mission that was forefront in the work and foregrounded in the context of that work. And so how much we expect of ourselves, both as writers, but also how much we're expecting of our readers.
A lot.
Of course.
Because I think in some way we love our readers and we want to be with them in something larger than ourselves as individuals, and that we're all in this together, and that, by offering voice, uh, by offering that multitude of reasonings and what's happening, and the witnessing and the existing in and the experiential, by giving that, and maybe a generous way, maybe in a way that invokes a sense of we're in conversation, that the audience will find some threads that are relatable in some measure of what's the cost, what's at stake, are we breathing okay, are we living okay. They said the other day that they did blood tests on a particular community and found that something like 40% of the people they were doing the test on had microplastics in their lungs.
Oh,
Humans,
wow.
people,
Yeah.
so we're at that. It's really critical. So yes, I think a lot, and I think that there are people who will hate the book and will take the opposite political position and do their thing, and that's okay. There's other books for them, you know. But this book, for me, is the conversation point. With audience, with everyone, it's a way of opening up widely enough so that people can come and join in that measure and take part and participate. I had another strange question the other day on my campus where somebody said, well, some of these things people have been asking for a long time, and did you have a fear for asking for it again? No, because it's still happening. It's still happening. I have no fear whatsoever. We're at a critical point. So we need everyone, it's like everyone. We need to like come together, and make things happen in a very big way. I do want to ask, too, for the listeners today, or anybody that hears this recording in the future, to look at some of the work by my friend I mentioned, who I love dearly, and her work is one of the most beautiful things happening that I know on the West Coast, but worldwide as well. Christina Eisenberg's work in her book A Wolf's Tooth and Trophic Cascade, and some other hard science books that she's written in some of this working to reclaim space and to reintroduce animals that have been driven out or extincted in that area and brought in from other places, such as wolf reclamation, which she's been heavily involved in, and how that keystone creature then affects everything else there. And so elk, when there's a predator, have to move their head back and forth to watch, to be on alert, and otherwise they just eat through the aspen. But when you have the wolf there, they keep moving, and so things don't get depleted, right? So we have to have that balance, right? And the Lambeck movement, and there's so much that people could do. There's so many landowners, so many of even I used to take old women to treaty meetings back in the 80s, and drive them to go talk at the treaty meetings because they remembered something somebody their grandparents had told them from when things were being signed,
Yeah.
and or closer relatives where things were being signed still, uncles, aunties. And I would take them to the meetings to speak, and at that time they were asking for some of the churches to give back their summer camp property, which was often taken land, stolen land, and they use it once a year. And it's like, give it back, and maybe you can come for your week in the summer, Well, why do you hold it all year, And it's that kind of a simple request, that has not been received in the way that it could have been all these decades later, And so we're still at that place of let's talk and let's figure this out now. And sometimes you have to really expose yourself to allow that conversation to begin. I'm talking too much, I know.
No, not at all. I really appreciate the perspective there, and even just that approach of the poem conversation, but especially the poem conversation as opposed to admonishment, and how that can open up. You talk about how the book might not be for everyone, but the kind of beauty of the work is that it really does allow the reader to participate in that conversation, and the reader to react however they will, but the poem itself is simply the invitation in the door. It's not the blueprint for the way forward, or the this is how we should. I'm just seeing this one question in the chat
From Nick.
from Nick. Yes. Did you do any shuffling of material or page? Oh, this is great from like a kind of craft perspective, because I'm also how to work through the material itself. Did you do any shuffling of material or pages once you began to edit the work? Or did you stay true to the sequence as it originally poured out? And in terms of the lists of species, people, atrocities, and more, did those expand after the initial writing? So especially in that revision process.
Yeah, so everything stayed in the musical composition that happened. So the form stayed. Uh, some of the excisions, the surgical excisions of the draft, were more list I had originally
Mhm.
composed, and some were fairly graphic list, and some were. And my editor said, "You have this line that says you think this is exhausting. This is a partial recount because I break fourth wall with audience because I'm listing all these beautiful things that we're in danger of losing forever needlessly, and I'm listing them and loving them, and then I list atrocities, these massacres that have happened,
Mhm.
uh, so many, and the kids caged on the border while I'm writing it, and all the things,
Mhm.
it's happening, and it's all related. It's that same diabolical, sort of monstrous mentality that creates this. And and the editor goes, "Well, here we," and she goes, "You wrote this?" I go, "Yeah, I broke fourth wall because I know from reading, what this is like." And then she said, "Well, why don't you excise some of these other lists and just play for a while, just riff for a while with the thought of it." And so
Mhm.
instead of like 20 some more pages or however many, I don't know what we cut out. I didn't do a count. However much that was, I riffed through and alluded to in some
Mhm.
ways, and
Mhm.
otherwise just left it separate. So there's a little riff in there that wasn't original, and there's the wolf is added, something about COVID is added, and there was one other political thing. So there's three small additions. These are like tiny, like couplets or something. And then there's this riff that's maybe a couple of pages that wasn't
Mhm.
original. Uh,
Mhm.
yeah, and that was me believing my editor, who's also a reader, and not me as the composer in this orchestra.
Yeah,
You
it's
know.
so important to get those readers at every stage.
Absolutely, and trusting them and saying, "Yeah, I got you, okay."
Yeah, and I love those fourth wall moments, really, where you just have this like burst of sincerity. Like so much of poetry is artifice, but also it's artifice, but it's also this sort of sincere gesture, I think, that gets lost in the sort of fear that non-poetry readers have of poetry. And I think that, having those moments where you have that on the page, where you just come out and say the thing, it feels counterintuitive as a writer. You're like, can I be this direct? Aren't I supposed to dress this up in some sort of pretty clever way? But sometimes the thing just needs to be said. That's I personally enjoyed that moment of the book.
Oh, great. Thank you. It happened very naturally.
It reads like and so
Yeah,
so we're almost out of time here.
okay.
It's been so wonderful to have you, Allison.
Thank you.
um and I suppose really just what's next would be my last question here. We'll close on just what's next. What are you working on? I know you have this book that you've shelved from that deadline, but really
Yeah.
excited to hear what's happening beyond the page.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm culminating many things and writing poems as they occur. But as far as projects go, I have the first full year sabbatical that I've had in my entire life. I've worked since I was child labor permit kid. I had a labor permit as a child, and I've been working all my life unless I was too sick to. But I have a full year off. I got the Mellon Dean's professorship. So I started a film with my father in his 90s after my mother passed to keep him going, to have a project. And we went and interviewed all these older, mostly Native people in their 90s or very late 80s, some as old as 96. And we were shooting this documentary about climate change in the 30s, man-made climate change in the 30s from their perspective. And of course, even though they were in the areas Ken Burns shot, he didn't speak to any of them. He spoke to 5 Anglo people. So we went around doing that work, and I have that film almost in the can, ready to edit. And I had 2 more locations to go to, and then I got this job and have been working, and haven't got to finish the film. So part of it will be to do last interviews and to edit that film. And so I'm hoping to have a documentary after the next year, and hoping to finish this other book of poetry, which should have gone in when Look at This Blue went in. But Look at This Blue is happening, so it had to happen. I couldn't say no to it. It was there, it had to happen. And so I have to rework the one until I feel like that with it, and then I'll let it loose. And I have a couple of novels in progress, and
Oh,
so I'm
wow.
considering maybe I'll be more generous with my fiction than I've been. We'll see.
That's so great. It's so wonderful to hear all the different projects and the different varieties. And it's never too late to go from one genre to the other, and
Yeah,
to just also let that work interrupt yourself and trust the work. So
yeah,
thank you so
absolutely.
much. A documentary sounds super exciting. That would be awesome. So good
Thank
luck with all of that. Congratulations on that new position. I'm so thrilled that you'll have the time to do all of that. And
Thank you.
so now I'll turn it back over to Nick. But thank you again, Allison, for joining us this evening. It's been a pleasure.
Congratulations on your new hire as well. That's
Thank you.
terrific. Yeah, I'm so happy for you. They're lucky to have you, and I'm sure Oregon's going to really miss you.
Oh, thanks so much. I'll have to come back in the summers. My heart will always be with the West Coast here.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
We are going to miss Abigail, and thanks so much to both of you for such an amazing conversation. And Allison, that reading was just incredibly powerful. I happen to be a California native, and I could feel it pouring through me and taking me through so many places. And I don't think I'm going to be able to sleep knowing that you wrote that in 48 hours. That was a stunning revelation. I didn't see that one coming, but incredibly impressive. But thank you again. have a wonderful year off, and I hope you're able to get to all those projects. And thank you for joining us here at EOU virtually. It was a
Thank
great
you.
evening. Abigail, thanks again. Appreciate it. And
Thank you.
thanks to our attendees, and thanks to Sheldon, who did IT behind the scenes and helped make this happen. Good night, everyone. Take good care.
Thank you. Take care. Thanks for having me. See you.